John, you and I just got back from Gamescom. We had a great time in Germany together, but most importantly, we got to play Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake, and I saw your face beaming. You were smiling from ear to ear after we left our demo appointment. I'm pretty sure this game made you very happy, so I gotta hear it, man. What did you think?
God, it's been so hard not to talk about this. We played this like a week ago, and the embargo has been holding us back, but we're finally able to speak. And yeah, this is perfection. Like there's so little wrong with this. The original Dragon Quest III was a pioneering RPG that pretty much set all JRPGs to be what they are today. Like that mold is exactly what a traditional turn-based RPG is, and it hasn't drastically changed. The overall stem is very much there, but the little petals surrounding it are just beautiful. The visuals, the music, the voice acting, just the added flair to everything. It just makes it's just amazing. It's just such a beautiful, well-done remake, and I'm not sure there's that many games that quite top this kind of visual redo. I will say there was one thing, like when I first got into the demo, I'll say the default battle speed is very slow, but you can definitely turn that way up, so you'll want to do that very soon, because otherwise the attacks are all very, very, very slow-paced. But once you turn things up, I literally have no issues. I was in love.
I felt the exact same way. The default battle speed's quite slow. There's like a weirdly long time between the text box saying this is happening and then the actual action happening. So yeah, you're going to want to turn the battle speed up right away. I've settled on the middle speed. There's like normal, fast, and like fastest, I think. And I settled on fast because fastest was a little bit too quick. Like I felt like battles were going by too fast and I couldn't quite follow everything going on. But the middle speed seemed to be really comfortable. What about you?
Yeah, the battle effects are gorgeous. Like they're such a brilliant, like any fire move just looks, you feel the heat almost, and you don't want to miss all of that. But for sure, I sort of went somewhere in the middle. But I can definitely see like if you're deep in a dungeon and you're sort of getting a bit wary of all the random encounters, you can just turn that thing all the way up and just blaze your way through.
Or if you're grinding.
Yeah, or if you're grinding, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we got to play both versions. I'm not sure that's been done yet. So far, I'm pretty sure most previews have been on PlayStation 5. And they encourage us to try with PS5 first. And it's gorgeous there. I'm pretty sure it's 4K 60. It just runs silky smooth and looks amazing. And then once we were done with that, we had the option of picking up a Switch, which of course we both did. And going from PS5 to Switch, you definitely feel like you're going down a spec. But once you've played for 10 minutes, it becomes very normal. Like most HD-2D games, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the difference you're going to feel in terms of something like Octopath Traveler 2, right? Like on PS5 or PS4, it's like a smooth 60 FPS, looks amazing. Then if you play it on Switch, it's 30 FPS, still looks really good because the HD-2D art style, just in general, is beautiful. But yeah, you are definitely looking at a performance hit if you're going to play it on Switch, but it's not like a deal breaker by any means.
It's just jarring to go from one to the other, but no one's going to be playing that way apart from like Digital Foundry.
Right, exactly.
We played in handheld mode though. We didn't have the option for docked, and it looked great on that little small screen. And yeah, even though it runs lesser than the PS5 version, it still runs totally fine.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, this is a game that's going to be beautiful no matter which platform you play it on. And again, if you care about performance, then you're going to want to play it on PlayStation. But yeah, this also isn't the kind of game that relies on 60 FPS, right? So, I think there are certain genres that really benefit from a higher frame rate and that it matters more. But turn-based RPGs is not one of those genres.
Yeah, and speaking one more thing about performance, because I think this is pretty important. We're going from a game that so far, it's been on NES, it's been on Game Boy Color, it's been on Super Nintendo, and there is a digital version on Switch as well, but that's a 2D game. We're going from what was a cartridge-based game to a console game. And with that, especially with modern engines like Unreal Engine, load times are an important thing. And they were good. Like they really are quite. They're not like instant as they would be on NES, but they still feel great. There's not much downtime to them. It just flows very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. That's something I would have noticed if load times were, particularly long. And yeah, just my whole time playing both on PS5 and Switch, I never felt like things were taking too long to load. So yeah, it just flows. It flows really well. And going back to the battles for a second, another reason you're not going to want to, go too fast through these battles is because the pixel art, man.
Oh yeah.
The pixel art for the enemies is, again, and I'm reminded again of Octopath Traveler 2, because that was a game that kind of stepped up its pixel art compared to the first game's enemies. And just the enemy animations, and it's beautiful. This game is beautiful, man.
It's stunning, and these creatures were only animated on Game Boy Color. Every other version of Dragon Quest III has static art, so it's so nice to see it, not only on the big screen but in HD with all this detail. It's absolutely beautiful. We got quite a bit of time with this demo, and originally they asked us to follow the critical path, which I didn't quite do. I wanted to go around and explore. I wanted just to roam around the world map. To Dragon Quest III's absolute credit, I remember there was an article a while back saying Dragon Quest III HD-2D adds a day-night cycle, but that's always been there. It's been there since the NES days. That's just how ahead of the curve Dragon Quest III was. And I think everything's just going to feel modern. And for those who haven't played it before, you're going to question, was that there in the first place? And for a lot of these elements, they were, yeah. But they've also made things a bit neater in other areas too. The random encounters feel a bit more curated. Like sometimes in NES they can be a bit much, whereas here it felt good. It felt like it's not like there's not too many of them, but it still makes a trek across a field feel long, like a battle, because you have those encounters coming up. You're not always safe, but it definitely feels more well balanced than NES was in that regard.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, you can adjust the battle speed, and something you can also do, which I always appreciate, is you can adjust the difficulty on the fly. Yeah. So if you want to just grind and have a really easy time, you can just knock it down to easy and do that for a while. Or if you want a serious challenge, you can knock it up to the hardest difficulty. But I've said before that I'm a big fan of anytime a game not just doesn't waste your time, but lets you interface with it how you want to. And kind of meets you where you are. If you don't have a lot of time, you can just knock it down to easy or whatever you want to do. And this game does that. You can adjust the difficulty on the fly. And I just, I appreciate it when there isn't just one default way to play the game, and the game actually meets you where you are and lets you kind of play it how you want to, right?
Yeah, there's just a lot of little options in that regard. And it's also just so nice how HD-2D has evolved. When we first saw it with Octopath Traveler 1, I think we're all taken away by its beauty. But looking back at Octopath Traveler 1 after 2 and Live Alive and Dragon Quest 3, it's a different beast now. And this Dragon Quest 3 is just, I think this is about as good as it gets. If HD-2D keeps getting better, I'll be amazed, but it just presents everything. It's to learn from all the mistakes and the little blemishes that were in the previous games, and it's just the best of everything. And the music too. I was so scared it would be MIDI tracks, but no, they've gone for full orchestration for the battle, for the overworld, for the towns, and it's so whimsical. It's so nice.
It's so weird with Dragon Quest and MIDI, because I'm a huge video game music fan, as you know, and most games, even when they're doing MIDI tracks and not full orchestration, it's fine. But there's something about Dragon Quest where they use the worst quality MIDI possible. And it's weird because I remember Dragon Quest 11 before the S version on Switch, and it sounded terrible. But so many other games do MIDI fine, and Dragon Quest just has always had an issue with it. But yeah, in this case, it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about it regardless, because it is full orchestration. The soundtrack is beautiful, and it's sounding great. It's looking great. I hope HD-2D never goes anywhere as an art style, because I think it just looks amazing. And what's cool about this is I'm coming at this game from an entirely different angle from you, because you have been a longtime Dragon Quest fan. You've played the original DQ3, and for me, I'm a bit more of a recent fan. I've always admired Dragon Quest from a distance. I've always respected its legacy, and obviously understood how important it is to gaming and RPGs specifically. But I was a Final Fantasy kid, so I grew up playing Final Fantasy, and I just never really had a chance to get into Dragon Quest as much. And then more recently, I played Dragon Quest XI-S, and I absolutely loved it. That was my entry into the series. I adored DQ11. And at some point, I need to go back and play DQ8, because everyone says 8's amazing. But I've always heard that DQ3 is such an important game in the series, and such an important game to RPGs in general. And whereas you're coming at this, like, revisiting it in this new art style and coming back to a game that you loved and played a long time ago, this is my first time playing DQ3 via the HD-2D remake. And I'm so excited. I loved what I played. And I know this game is so important, but I haven't played the original like you. And yet I'm still so excited, and it appeals to my JRPG sensibilities regardless.
Yeah, it's one of those important games that still holds up incredibly well, because this came out around the same time as Final Fantasy 1, and like you've got a party system that you can give jobs to, you can fly around near the end of the game. Like, there's so many things that Final Fantasy wouldn't really get hold of,
right?
Like, it wouldn't really latch onto until far later entries, but they're so polished in Dragon Quest 3. And but still, like, this is the template of a JRPG. They haven't really evolved that far from 3, and so it's instantly understandable. It's so easy to jump into regardless of whether you have a history with it. I mean, and you've played 11. 11's a very long game.
Yeah, it is.
3 isn't that long. Like, 3 is that sort of classic, like, 20-hour mark RPG, but it has a lot of journey in that 20 hours. You're going all the way around the world. There's so many different towns. You get a lot of adventure in there, and I think it's interesting to see how they're sort of elaborating on that a bit, because they haven't really added that many new events that we know of, but they flesh things out. So I think voice acting's a big part of that. Like, near the start of our demo, you go to the castle, and the king speaks to you, fully voiced, and I think there's some more text that wasn't in the original there. So they're sort of elaborating on things without really dragging things out, and it just kind of gives the game more of a cinematic flair.
Dragging things out, I hear you. I heard you say it. But yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's nice to hear that it's like kind of one of those more like 20-hour RPGs, because games by and large feel like they're getting longer and longer and longer with each generation, and it is nice to have something a little bit more bite-sized. Kind of like, my favorite game of all time is Chrono Trigger, and one of the things I love about it is that it's like 20, 30 hours. It's not like 100 plus, even though, to be fair, I just said I love DQ11, and it earns its length. It's not padded out unnecessarily. Like, it works for the game that is, but it is nice that this game is a little bit more bite-sized, and you're not staring down in a 100-hour epic, I was like, I know you remember, but our like demo handler was very hands-on and was like watching what everyone was doing. It was
he
like
kept asking if I was lost. I'm like, I'm not lost.
Yeah, it was you and me and Huber from Easy Allies. We were all playing together, and he was like really hands-on, and so I actually stuck to the main story path to like kind of hopefully distract him, and like and so you could do what you wanted. And hopefully he wouldn't be like looking over your shoulder, because he was very like, hey, if you're lost, I can help you. And and I just wanted you to be able to explore. So I stuck to the main story path, which was basically, I can't remember the name of the town, but it was basically going from a town to Skyfell Tower to, and I do love the enemy name, to take down Robin Hood, a thief who had stolen something of importance to that town's king. And so I was able to do all that. So I did complete that story path in the demo, did the boss fight against Robin Hood, but I generally did not get to explore, obviously, like you did, and I was mainly just trying to distract our handler. So how far off the beaten path did you go?
I went pretty far off the path. Yeah, so instead of going north through the desert, first I went south, went through a dungeon, and just they'd actually already done this dungeon on their save file, but I just wanted to see more of that area. And it's so beautiful when you go into a dark and gloomy area and you get the torch out and just see it illuminate. Like, the lighting's so gorgeous. I went a bit to the east and saw more of like the forest area. I just saw as much as I could. And when this game was revealed, that reveal trailer showed like a pretty static world. But now you have like a lot of hills and bumpiness to the terrain. Like, they've come a long way since that reveal, and it really does just make it feel bigger. And what's interesting too is I was kind of scared. Like, when remaking an older legacy game, I'm sometimes scared that they're going to put in like waypoints or objectives saying like, go here. And they stay pretty clear of that. If you go onto the map, which I believe is on like, the Y button on Switch, there is like a little glowing dot saying like, this is where you should be going. But you never have to look at that. Like, Dragon Quest is very good because like if you talk to an NPC in a town, they'll say things like, go west, go east. And that is enough to go on, because that still has you exploring the world without having to follow a dot. But yeah, that dot is there for those who are completely lost, but you never need to touch that. You can rely on the world's guidance to get you around. And honestly, that's the way to do it. But if you're totally lost, there's a little bit of a marker saying like, go over here.
Yeah, and that just kind of goes back to what we were saying before about how this game kind of meets you where you are and lets you play it how you want. And that's what I always look for in terms of quality of life updates to older games, like stuff like that just make the play experience more compatible with whatever amount of time you have to play it, and just just lets you kind of interface with it how you want. And this is a game that really is doing that on all fronts in terms of the quality of life updates. Now, there's also some new stuff, and of course this is going to mean more to you than me because I never played the original, but there is a new job class, or I think they call them vocations in this game, which is as you said earlier, monster wrangler. Essentially you can capture monsters and I guess use them in battle. We didn't get to do that specifically, but there is also a new monster arena. I mean, it's essentially what you would think. It's a kind of thing where, I guess kind of like FF6's Coliseum, where you can't directly control the monsters in your party, and it's kind of like you choose the best lineup you have, and you hope for the best. And that's what I did. And there were prizes to get. Like I won some gold and some items and stuff from winning the first round of the monster arena. But that, to my understanding, is something that was not in the original game. And then there is, separately from that, a new vocation, like Monster Wrangler, but we didn't really get to experiment with that.
No, but it sounds like they're doing the Dragon Quest V thing of recruiting monsters, which is very, very cool. We haven't actually seen it, so yeah, hopefully that's what it is.
And also, now that I think about it in terms of different vocations, one of the cooler things that I saw in our demo is that you can customize the appearance of all the characters in your party, not just the main character. Yeah, you can customize their appearance, like their hair color, their outfits, their gender. Like, you can completely customize your party however you want to, which I think is really cool.
It's extremely cool, yeah. For those who don't know, Dragon Quest III, basically, you don't have just set characters. Like, the hero is kind of a set character, but everyone else you recruit from the beginning of the game. So you can get, like, a mage, or you can get a healer, or whatever else, and you just kind of make your ideal party. So adding customization to that to really make them your own is very, very cool. But yeah, I have no concerns. Like, everything is just ticking all the boxes. And we also got to have a little bit of an interview, didn't we?
We did, yeah. At the last 10 minutes or so, we got to interview the game's producer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had to hold myself back. I wanted so badly to be a troll and be like, so when's Chrono Trigger? When's that happening? But I, of course, held back. I would never have disrespected him like that. But you could tell that the passion was palpable, right? He was so excited to be talking about this game, and you could tell how proud he is of what they are making.
Yeah. We asked questions like, why HD-2D? Like, why aren't you doing a 3D remake like Dragon Quest XI? And I think their answers were pretty much respecting the legacy of the original while trying to introduce fans to what made it so great in the first place. And honestly, I didn't want this to be 3D anyway. I think they made the right call here. But it's just interesting hearing the rationale behind why they went this way.
He was very honest. He said, honestly, if we had gone full 3D, it would have taken way too long to make. It would have taken so much longer, which, of course, yeah, it would have. And that makes sense. But he was like, not only did we want to respect the legacy of the original, we, wanted to not have, like, a massively long development cycle. And that would have happened had it been a full-on 3D remake.
I did ask, why did you remake Dragon Quest III first? And yeah, there's a logical answer to that question, being it is the first one in the story. But I mentioned, like, playing 1 and 2 does add a bit of power to the ending of the game. And they seem convinced that it'd still be fine this way. And honestly, it probably is, because 1 and 2 are still coming, so you're going to get that additional context regardless. But yeah, they seemed to be pretty confident that 3 is the one to do first.
That is interesting. Coming from a long-time series fan like you, like I'm wondering if what my experience will be like not having played 3, 1, or 2. And obviously they are remaking all 3 of them and releasing them in that order. And I know that's chronologically the order that they take place in. But you just mentioned the ending hits harder if you play GQ 1 and 2 first. And so I'm wondering if I'm going to feel the same way. Like, because I do plan on playing all 3 games. And I'm wondering how I'll end up feeling, given that they're releasing them in this fashion, and I won't have had the benefit of playing 1 and 2 before 3.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I have my own biases. I think playing 1, 2, and 3 in that order is kind of the most satisfying way. But I've never had that scenario where I've played 3 first, because I can't have that scenario. So maybe it still hits the same. I don't know.
Interesting. I'm glad you and I got to do this preview, because you and I are coming at this game from such entirely different perspectives. You being a longtime fan who's played this game before, me being a huge JRPG fan who hasn't played this game in particular. And it'll be fun to kind of compare notes after we both play this, and especially all 3 games when they come out, when 1 and 2 eventually come out next year. It'll be fun to compare notes and see kind of what the experience was like for both of us.
100%. And I think I have a history of being quite picky with remakes and re-releases, but I don't think I've ever felt so confident in one, though. Like, it respects everything that made the original so good, but it just makes it look and sound stunning while just modernizing the elements that need modernizing, but keeping everything intact that was fine in the first place. It's one of those it's one of those magical remakes that kind of keeps the time capsule element there. It's definitely a game of its time, but that still thrives today. It doesn't need to evolve the elements that don't need it. It doesn't need to change the combat system. It doesn't need to change it from 2D to 3D. It can still be overhead. All of that stuff works totally fine, and they're respecting that. And it's kind of uncommon for that to happen these days.
Yeah, I agree, and I really hope that Square continues to kind of honor that legacy, because you have your vocal critics out there who are like, oh, turn-based RPGs are something of the past. They have no place in modern gaming, and that just so isn't true. Give me my turn-based RPGs with the HD-2D art style. I'm never gonna get tired of that, and I really hope that Square continues to honor that legacy, and not only their own legacy, but Dragon Quest's legacy with turn-based 2D games, because there is a place for them in modern gaming, absolutely. And I think this remake is going to go a long way toward proving that, just as much as games like Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler.
Absolutely. May HD-2D live a very long time.
Hell yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to cover, or I think I
think that's about it. Like, this is just shaping up incredibly well, and it's going to be quite hard to wait. But yeah, what we played was extremely promising, both on PS5 and on Switch.
Yeah, I agree, and we don't have that long to wait, fortunately, because it's coming out in November, I believe. Yeah, right? I don't remember the exact date, but it's coming out in November, so just a couple of months. And time is going so fast these days, it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope you enjoyed this preview of Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake. As a reminder, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/gvgaming, where if you support us, even at the $1 tier, you can get into our amazing Discord community full of like-minded folks who just want to talk about games, coming from all backgrounds. It's an amazing community. We would love to see you there. But even if you can't support us on Patreon, that's totally cool. If you just like and subscribe, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.